Welcome back to 100 Days and Beyond. I'm Dudley Peacock. This is episode 9. Today I want to expose something that the enterprise software industry does not want to talk about. It is called the Hypercare trap. And if you have ever paid for a transformation project and then felt completely abandoned, 3 weeks after go live, this episode is going to explain why that happened and what you should have demanded in the contract. Hypercare is meant to be the period after go live when the vendor stays close, watches for issues, helps the team adjust, and make sure the investment pays back. It is where most of the long-term value is made. And it is also where most vendors quietly disappear because the payment milestone has already been hit and there is no commercial pressure to stay engaged. Let me walk you through how this works and what to do about it. Proper hypercare is a defined period, usually 12 weeks, where the vendor maintains a daily presence with the client, not a help desk, not a support ticket queue, an actual named team that knows the client, knows the configuration, and is watching the system in real time. In that 12-week window, the vendor should be doing 5 things: monitoring system logs for errors that the client would not notice, reviewing usage patterns to see whether the team is working with the system or around it, holding weekly check-ins with the business owners to surface small issues before they become big ones, making configuration adjustments in response to what the data is showing, and documenting everything that is learned so the knowledge stays with the client when the 12 weeks end. Done properly, hypercare is the period where the transformation actually embeds. The technical configuration gets finalized, the human workflows get corrected, and the team moves from surviving the new system to actually using it well. By the end of hypercare, the client can run the system confidently without daily vendor contact, but with the documentation and the relationship to pick up the phone when something new comes up. Here is what usually happens. The contract says hypercare is included. Nobody reads the small print. In reality, hypercare means the vendor's support ticketing system is available. And if the client logs a ticket, somebody will look at it within 5 business days. That is not hypercare. That is reactive support. And it puts the burden entirely on the client to notice problems and report them. The whole point of hypercare is that the vendor should be watching for problems the client would not notice. An integration silently dropping records, a workflow step that nobody is completing properly, a report running on stale data. These are things only the vendor can see because the vendor understands the architecture. So what happens is this: the client hits go live. The project team disbands. 3 weeks later, the client notices something is wrong. They log a ticket. Somebody from support who has never seen the configuration responds with a generic checklist. The client spends an afternoon explaining the context. Eventually, the issue gets resolved, or it gets ticketed out for a future release. By month 3, the client has stopped logging tickets because it is more effort than it is worth, and they just live with the issues. This is not a support failure. This is a commercial failure. The vendor was paid to go live, and once live was reached, the commercial incentive to stay engaged evaporated. If you are signing a new transformation contract, demand 4 things in the hypercare clause. I have written this into every contract we do at Q&A ERP Solutions, and you should do the same for any vendor you engage. First, a defined duration. 12 weeks is the minimum for any system touching finance or operations. Longer for anything with seasonal cycles the team has not been through yet. Second, a named team, not a support queue. The same people who built the system, they know the quirks, they know the data shape, they know the business context. If they leave the engagement, the hypercare period restarts. Third, a proactive monitoring obligation. The vendor should be running scheduled health checks, data integrity, integration success rates, report accuracy, and reporting results weekly, not waiting for the client to raise issues. Fourth, a payment milestone tied to the end of hypercare, not to go live. In our contracts, 20% of the total fee is held back until the end of Hypercare, and it is only released when the client signs off on a specific checklist. That aligns incentives properly. The vendor does not get the final payment until you are genuinely stable in production. I was on a Hypercare call yesterday with a client we took live 7 weeks ago. The meeting took 40 minutes. We walked through 3 things. First, the weekly health check, every integration green, month-end close, time running at 4 days instead of the 9 it used to take. 0 data integrity issues flagged. Second, one adjustment we had made in response to a workflow issue spotted in the logs. The finance team were routing a particular supplier invoice type through a manual approval that should have been automatic, so we reconfigured it. Third, a training gap we had noticed. 2 members of the team were still exporting to Excel for one specific report. So we booked a 30-minute walkthrough to show them the report that already existed in the system. That is Hypercare, small, regular, proactive, nothing dramatic, just consistent presence that catches problems before they become habits. And by week 12, that client will be running completely independently with a documentation pack that the next new hire can pick up and use.